The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Defense Summit sparkled under 3 different suns as delegates from 47 species gathered for the most important meeting in centuries. The Zarathi Empire had already consumed 12 star systems in the Outer Rim, and their fleet was growing stronger with each conquest. Every major civilization in the galaxy had sent their best military minds to find a solution. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez walked through the towering halls, her simple blue uniform looking plain next to the elaborate displays of alien technology. The Zephyrians wore their traditional crystal armor that hummed with energy weapons. The Valdris delegation moved as one mind, their telepathic connection allowing perfect coordination. Even the peaceful Centaurans carried gravity manipulators that could crush starships. Earth had only been contacted by the Galactic Council 3 years ago. Humanity was still learning how to build proper faster-than-light engines, while these beings had conquered the stars for thousands of years. Elena knew they were the newest and least advanced species in the room, but Earth had something to offer in this war. The main chamber was a sight that took Elena's breath away. Floating platforms held delegates from species she had only seen in briefings. The insectoid Krillians clicked their mandibles in complex patterns. The gaseous Etherians flickered between visible and invisible states. At the center of it all sat the Council of 12, the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Supreme Commander Thex 9 of the Zephyrians called the meeting to order. His crystalline form reflected light in patterns that served as both communication and display of authority. "We face a threat unlike any in recorded history," he announced, his words automatically translated by the neural implants all delegates wore. "The Zarathi Empire has perfected a form of warfare that overwhelms our traditional defenses." Elena listened as military leader after military leader described the same pattern. The Zarathi would arrive with massive fleets, establish orbital dominance, then send ground forces to capture key installations. Their technology was superior to most species, but more importantly, they fought with a cold efficiency that left no room for mercy or retreat. "We need a united response," said General Kavtor of the Valdris hegemony. His smooth gray head pulsed with the soft blue light that indicated active telepathic communication with his species. "Our individual fleets have failed. Only by combining our forces can we hope to match their numbers." The debate went on for hours. Each species offered their specialties. The Zephyrians with their energy weapons, the Valdris with their perfect coordination, the Centaurans with their gravity technology. Detailed battle plans appeared as holographic displays above the chamber floor, showing fleet formations and tactical approaches that would have seemed like magic to humans just a few years ago. Finally, Elena stood up. The chamber fell silent as attention turned to the human delegate. Some species had never seen a human before, and whispers echoed through the alien crowd. "Earth requests permission to contribute military forces to the coalition," Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation system. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the laughter began. It started with the Krillians, their mandible clicks becoming rapid and high-pitched. The Zephyrians' crystal forms began resonating with what Elena had learned was their equivalent of mirth. Even the usually polite Centaurans allowed themselves small sounds of amusement. Supreme Commander Thex 9 held up one crystalline appendage for quiet. "Ambassador Rodriguez, we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm. However, your species has barely achieved interstellar flight. Your weapons technology is based on chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles. Your military tactics are designed for fighting on a single planet." General Kavtor's head pulsed brighter as he consulted with other Valdris minds. "Our telepathic analysis indicates that human military doctrine relies heavily on what you call conventional warfare. This approach has been obsolete in galactic combat for over 3,000 years. A new voice joined the discussion. Commander Zix of the Etherian Collective flickered into visibility, her gaseous form taking on a vaguely humanoid shape. The Zarathi use plasma-based weapons that can melt through any solid matter. They employ energy shields that render kinetic weapons useless. Their ships are controlled by artificial intelligence that calculates probabilities faster than biological minds can react. Humans, she continued, still use gunpowder. The laughter resumed louder this time. Elena felt her face growing red, but she forced herself to remain calm. She had expected this reaction. Every simulation Earth's military leaders had run predicted exactly this response from the galactic community. Ambassador Veldtone of the Centaurans stood gracefully, his tall, elegant form radiating diplomatic courtesy. Perhaps, he suggested gently, Earth could assist with supply routes or communication relays. There are many ways to contribute to a war effort beyond direct combat. We could use additional transport vessels, agreed Supreme Commander Thex-9. Human ships, while primitive, might serve adequately for moving supplies between secure sectors. Elena looked around the chamber at beings who commanded fleets that could destroy entire solar systems. She saw technology that could reshape matter at the molecular level and artificial intelligence that could predict enemy movements with mathematical precision. But she also saw something that concerned her. What about boarding actions? She asked. The chamber fell quiet again, but this time with confusion rather than amusement. Boarding actions? General Kavtor's telepathic light flickered uncertainly. You mean physically entering enemy vessels during combat? Yes, Elena replied. Close quarters fighting inside enemy ships, taking control of their vessels from the inside. Commander Zix flickered between visible states. No galactic military has attempted such tactics for millennia. The risk-to-benefit ratio is impossibly poor. Modern warfare is conducted at distances measured in thousands of kilometers. The Zerathi ships are heavily shielded, added a delegate from the Makani Syndicate. Approaching close enough for boarding would result in certain destruction. Elena nodded slowly. This was the gap she had hoped to find. What about ground combat? Fighting on the surface of occupied worlds? Also obsolete, Supreme Commander Thex-9 answered with certainty. Planetary bombardment is far more efficient than surface warfare. The Zerathi simply eliminate all resistance from orbit. And if bombardment isn't possible, if they need to capture something intact, the alien delegates exchange looks, or their species equivalent of looks. This was clearly not a scenario they had considered seriously. In such unlikely circumstances, General Kavtor said slowly, automated defense systems and robotic forces would handle any surface threats. No civilized species risks biological personnel in direct combat when technology can accomplish the same goals. Elena felt a cold smile spreading across her face. Earth's military leaders had been right. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had forgotten how to fight dirty. Earth formally requests assignment to active combat duty, she repeated. Supreme Commander. Thex-9's crystal form dimmed slightly with what Elena had learned was frustration.
Ambassador, I respect your species' courage, but this is not a matter for negotiation.
Human forces simply lack the capability to engage Zerathi military units effectively. Then assign us to a sector where we won't encounter them, Elena suggested. The Supreme Commander's form brightened again. This was clearly an acceptable compromise. Very well. Human forces will be assigned to Sector 847. This region has been classified as low priority. The Zerathi are unlikely to advance there for several months, if at all. Elena bowed slightly. Thank you, Supreme Commander. Earth accepts this assignment. As the meeting moved on to discuss real strategic matters, Elena remained quiet. She had gotten exactly what she wanted. The other species saw Sector 847 as a safe, unimportant backwater where humans could play soldier without interfering with serious military operations. But Elena had studied the maps carefully. Sector 847 contained mining colonies, research stations, and most importantly, a major supply depot that supported Zerathi operations in 3 neighboring regions. If someone were to disrupt those supply lines, she looked around the chamber one more time at beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had forgotten that sometimes the best technology in the universe couldn't replace the will to fight against impossible odds. They were about to remember. As the delegates filed out to prepare for war, Elena remained behind for a moment, standing alone in the massive chamber. Her neural implant chimed with an incoming message from Earth. Admiral Chen's face appeared in her peripheral vision. How did it go? The Admiral asked. Exactly as predicted, Elena replied quietly. They've given us Sector 847. Perfect. When do we deploy? Elena smiled. Immediately. And Admiral, make sure the Marines know they're about to introduce the galaxy to a very old concept. What's that? Human stubbornness. The transmission ended and Elena walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the 3 suns were setting, casting long shadows across the crystal dome. In 72 hours, the first human military forces would arrive in Sector 847. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Defense Summit, and Sector 847 had remained exactly as quiet as the Supreme Commander predicted. The 7th Terran Marine Expeditionary Force had established their base on Kepler Station, a mining facility orbiting a dead planet that nobody considered worth defending. Colonel Marcus Shaw stood in the command center, watching his Marines run training exercises in the asteroid fields. The station's original mining equipment had been converted into makeshift defensive platforms, and human engineers had spent weeks learning how to integrate Earth technology with alien systems. It was messy work, but it was working. "Sir, we're getting some strange readings on the long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the communications officer. "Multiple contacts approaching from the Zerathi border. Looks like a full battle fleet." Shaw moved to the sensor display, frowning at the data streams. The approaching ships were massive, each one larger than Earth's entire space navy. The formation was perfect, with escort vessels arranged in geometric patterns that spoke of mathematical precision rather than tactical thinking. "How many ships?" Shaw asked. 67 capital ships plus support craft. Total force strength estimated at over 300 vessels. Shaw felt his stomach drop. Intelligence reports had described Zerathi fleets, but seeing one on sensors was different. This was enough firepower to glass an entire planet. "Time to intercept?" 4 hours, sir," signaled the fleet. "All ships to combat readiness. And send a priority message to Galactic Command. Tell them Sector 847 is about to get very interesting." Shaw looked around the command center at his staff. The 7th MEF consisted of 12,000 Marines, distributed across 8 ships that had been considered outdated by Earth standards even before humanity joined the galactic community. Their largest vessel, the UNS Defiance, carried kinetic weapons that most aliens dismissed as primitive. What the aliens didn't understand was that sometimes primitive was exactly what you needed. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Zerathi fleet," Lieutenant Kim announced. "Put it through." The main display flickered, showing a being that made Shaw's skin crawl. The Zerathi were tall and skeletal, with multiple arms ending in sharp claws. Their pale skin looked almost translucent, and their large black eyes showed no emotion at all. Most disturbing was the way they moved, too smooth, too coordinated, like machines wearing biological shells. "Attention, primitive species," the Zerathi commander spoke without preamble. "You are occupying a strategic position required by the Zerathi Empire. Evacuate immediately or be destroyed." Shaw stepped forward. "This is Colonel Marcus Shaw of the Terran Marine Corps. This station is under the protection of the Galactic Defense Coalition. Withdraw immediately." The Zerathi's head tilted slightly, the only sign that Shaw's words had even registered. "Unknown species designation Terran not found in threat assessment database. Scanning. Analysis complete. Technology level primitive. Military capability negligible. You have 1 standard time unit to evacuate." The transmission ended abruptly. Shaw turned to his staff. "Well, that was polite. Lieutenant Kim, what's our status on the evacuation shuttles?" "Already launched, sir. All civilian personnel are clear." "Good. Signal the fleet. Implement Battle Plan Delta." What happened next would have horrified any galactic military observer. Instead of forming the traditional long-range combat formations favored by advanced species, the human ships began moving closer to the Zerathi fleet. Much closer. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm from the Defiance. "Marcus, you sure about this? We're going to be well inside their optimal firing range." "That's the idea, Admiral. These bastards have been steamrolling everyone because they fight like computers. Perfect formations, optimal ranges, calculated responses. But they've never fought anyone crazy enough to get in close." The Zerathi fleet detected the approaching human ships and immediately began adjusting their formation. Their movements were beautiful in their precision, every ship moving to maximize firing solutions while maintaining perfect defensive coverage. It was exactly what their tactical computers had calculated as the optimal response. It was also exactly what Shaw had hoped they would do. "All ships, execute on my mark," Shaw announced. "Marines, remember your training. Today we show the galaxy what humans do when someone threatens our friends." The space battle that followed broke every rule of modern galactic warfare. The Zerathi opened fire first, their plasma weapons lighting up space with deadly precision. Energy beams that could melt through any known armor struck the human ships and bounced off. Shaw smiled grimly as he watched the tactical display. Human engineers had spent 3 months studying Zarathi technology, and they had discovered something important. Plasma weapons were designed to penetrate energy shields and vaporize advanced materials. They were not designed to deal with good old-fashioned tungsten armor plating. Now, Shaw shouted. The human ship suddenly scattered in all directions, abandoning any pretense of formation flying. The Zarathi computers, programmed to respond to logical tactical maneuvers, struggled to track targets that were moving in completely irrational patterns. The UNS Defiance rolled inverted and dove directly toward the Zarathi flagship, her kinetic weapons firing continuously. The Zarathi's energy shields, designed to deflect plasma and energy beams, offered no protection against solid projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed. Tungsten rounds punched through shield generators and armor plating like paper. But the real surprise came when the human ships reached point-blank range. "Launch assault pods," Shaw ordered. From the bellies of the human ships came dozens of small craft, too small for the Zarathi sensors to track effectively, too numerous for their point defense systems to intercept. Each pod contained a squad of Marines in powered armor, armed with weapons that no galactic military had used in centuries. The Zarathi watched in confusion as these tiny craft latched onto their hull plating and began cutting their way inside. Inside the Zarathi flagship, Commander Vex Prime consulted with the ship's tactical computer. The situation made no logical sense. No species had attempted boarding actions for over 2,000 years. The risk-to-benefit ratio was impossibly poor. Yet somehow, primitive beings were cutting through the hull and entering the ship. "Deploy internal security forces," Vex Prime ordered. The ship's automated systems responded immediately, sending robotic guards to intercept the intruders. The robots were efficient, well-armed and programmed with the combat experience of a dozen conquered species. They lasted exactly 43 seconds against the first squad of human Marines. Sergeant Jake Torres kicked aside the remains of the third robot and checked his ammunition counter. Behind him, his squad was already setting charges on the bulkhead leading to the ship's power core. "Control, this is Alpha Squad. We're inside their flagship and moving toward primary targets. These tin cans fight like they've never seen grenades before." "Copy, Alpha Squad. Be advised, Bravo and Charlie squads have secured the engine room. Delta is working on their communication array." Torres grinned inside his helmet. The Zarathi ship was huge and sophisticated, but it was designed to fight other ships, not infantry moving through its corridors. Every passageway was wide enough for maintenance robots. Every system was accessible for automated repair crews, and there wasn't a single internal defense designed to stop humans with explosives. "Sir, we've got movement up ahead. Looks like actual Zarathi this time, not robots." Torres motioned his squad forward. Through his visor, he could see a group of the skeletal aliens moving toward their position. They carried advanced energy weapons and moved with that same mechanical precision he had seen in the recordings. "Remember your training, boys. These guys have been conquering the galaxy for centuries, but they've never fought anyone who learned warfare from other humans." The firefight that followed was brief, but decisive. The Zarathi were individually stronger and better armed than the humans, but they had never faced an enemy that used suppressing fire, flanking maneuvers, and coordinated squad tactics. They fought like a computer program, logical, efficient, and completely unprepared for the chaos of human military doctrine. Within minutes, Torres and his squad had fought their way to the ship's bridge. Commander Vex Prime turned as the humans breached the final barrier. The alien's black eyes showed confusion for the first time in his long military career. "This is not possible. Primitive species do not possess the capability for effective boarding operations." Torres pulled off his helmet, revealing a scarred face and a cold smile. "You know what your problem is? You've forgotten that sometimes the best weapon isn't the most advanced one. Sometimes it's just the one held by someone too stupid to know when they're beaten." He raised his rifle. "This ship belongs to humanity now." Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out on Zarathi vessels throughout the fleet. Human Marines, armed with weapons their enemies considered obsolete, were systematically capturing ships that had been designed to be uncapturable. The Zarathi, for all their technological superiority, had no experience fighting an enemy that specialized in close-quarters combat. By the end of the day, the 7th MF had done something no galactic military had accomplished in over a century. They had not just defeated a Zarathi fleet, They had kept the news of humanity's victory at Sector 847 spread through the galaxy like wildfire, but the reactions were far from uniform. In the crystal spires of the Zephyrian High Command, Supreme Commander Thex 9 studied the battle reports with growing disbelief. "Run the simulation again," he ordered his tactical staff. For the 15th time, the holographic display showed the impossible. Primitive human ships closing to point-blank range with a Zarathi fleet, and somehow achieving total victory. The simulation kept producing the same result. Human defeat was mathematically certain. "The data must be corrupted," insisted General Hex 7, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. No species with such primitive technology could survive contact with Zarathi plasma weapons. But the evidence was undeniable. 12 Zarathi capital ships now flew under human colors, and their crews were sharing technical specifications with Earth's engineers. More disturbing were the intercepted Zarathi communications that had begun filtering through intelligence networks. Commander Thex 9 activated the recording that had arrived that morning. The voice belonged to Vex Prime, the captured Zarathi fleet commander. "Warning to all Zarathi forces," the transmission began. "Humans designated as extreme threat. Previous threat assessment incorrect. Species exhibits irrational tactical behavior. Boarding operations considered impossible by all galactic standards, yet humans execute successfully. Recommend immediate reclassification to maximum threat level." The transmission continued with details that made even veteran Zephyrian officers uncomfortable. Humans fought with a ferocity that defied all tactical models. They used weapons and tactics that had been obsolete for millennia, yet somehow made them devastatingly effective. Most disturbing of all, they refused to surrender even when facing certain death. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Zex 4, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Valdris hegemony. They're requesting immediate military consultation." The holographic image of General Kavtor appeared, his usually calm demeanor replaced by obvious agitation. The soft blue light that normally pulsed from his telepathic organs was flickering erratically. "Commander Thex 9, we need to discuss the human situation urgently. Our telepathic analysis of the Sector 847 battle reveals data that conflicts with our understanding of galactic warfare." "What have you discovered?" Thex 9 asked. "We monitored the humans during combat. Their mental patterns are unlike anything we have encountered. Most species think in logical, predictable patterns during battle. Humans." General Kavtor paused, his telepathic organs flashing brighter. "Humans think in chaos. They make decisions that appear suicidal, yet somehow achieve tactical advantage. Our probability calculations cannot predict their behavior." A new voice joined the conversation as Commander Zix of the Etherian Collective flickered into visibility. The Zarathi have started calling them the mad species in their internal communications. They've issued standing orders that any ship encountering human forces should immediately request reinforcements. Thex 9 felt his crystal structure vibrating with what his species experienced as shock. The Zarathi request reinforcements? They have never requested assistance in over 3 centuries of conquest. "It gets worse," Commander Zix continued. "Our intelligence networks have intercepted multiple Zarathi transmissions referring to humans as death-sworn primitives and chaos bringers. They're genuinely afraid." The implications were staggering. If the Zarathi, who had conquered dozens of advanced civilizations, were afraid of humans, then perhaps the galaxy had seriously underestimated Earth's military potential. "We need human tactical advisors," General Kavtor announced suddenly. "Our forces in Sector 922 are facing a Zarathi advance. Traditional defensive strategies have failed consistently. Perhaps human, unconventional approaches could prove effective." Commander Thex 9's crystalline form dimmed as he processed this request. 3 months ago he had dismissed humans as barely capable of supply duty. Now the most advanced telepathic species in the galaxy was asking for their help. "I will contact Earth immediately," he agreed. Meanwhile, in the elegant towers of the Centauran embassy, Ambassador Veltone was having a very different, but equally urgent conversation with his government. "The humans have something we lost long ago," he explained to the Centauran High Council via quantum communication. "They fight not just for victory, but for survival. Every battle is personal to them." "Explain," requested High Counselor Arnvel, her harmonious voice carrying across the void. "We have studied their military history. Humans have spent their entire evolutionary development fighting each other and their environment. War is not something they do, it is something they are. They have tactics and strategies that we abandoned as inefficient, yet in their hands, these approaches become devastatingly effective. Veltone activated a display showing captured footage from the Sector 847 battle. Watch how they move. No formation flying, no logical patterns. They attack from directions that make no tactical sense, yet somehow achieve perfect coordination. It is not mathematics, it is art. You believe they could teach our forces these techniques? I believe they could remind our forces what it means to fight with passion instead of programming. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert. Veltone's aide rushed into the room with a datapad containing the latest intelligence reports. Sir, you need to see this immediately. It's about human weapons technology. Veltone read the report with growing amazement. Human engineers had been studying captured Zarathi equipment for only 3 months, but they had already begun modifying their own weapons with devastating results. The primitive kinetic weapons that galactic forces had mocked were being enhanced with Zarathi targeting systems and power sources. They're creating hybrid technologies. Veltone explained to the High Council, taking their proven designs and enhancing them with captured alien improvements. The result is weapons that combine the penetrating power of kinetic projectiles with the precision of energy systems. And these hybrid weapons work? According to these reports, they're 40% more effective against Zarathi defenses than pure energy weapons. The Zarathi designed their shields to stop plasma and energy beams. They never considered that someone would improve chemical explosives with alien technology. But perhaps the most significant development was happening in the training centers of species across the galaxy. Word had spread that humans were willing to share their boarding tactics with allied forces, and the response had been overwhelming. Captain Ray 9 of the Zephyrian Space Marines stood in a modified cargo bay aboard a human ship, watching Sergeant Torres demonstrate close-quarters combat techniques. The human moved with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for a being encased in heavy armor. The key, Torres explained to the mixed group of alien soldiers, is not to think like a computer. Computers want optimal solutions and perfect efficiency. Sometimes the best solution is the one your enemy doesn't expect. He gestured to a mock-up of a Zarathi corridor. See, they design these passages for robots and automated systems. Wide straight with good sightlines. Perfect for energy weapons and programmed responses. Terrible for defending against beings who know how to use cover and concealment. Ray 9 watched as Torres demonstrated techniques that Zephyrian military doctrine had abandoned centuries ago. Taking cover behind obstacles, using explosives to create new routes, coordinating movement without electronic communication, all of it seemed primitive, yet undeniably effective. Question, Ray 9 called out. Human doctrine appears to rely heavily on individual initiative. How do you maintain unit cohesion without central control? Torres grinned. That's the beautiful part. We train our people to think, not just follow orders. Every Marine knows the mission and can adapt when things go wrong. And trust me, things always go wrong. The training session continued with practical exercises. Human Marines worked alongside alien soldiers, teaching them to move through confined spaces, clear rooms without advanced sensors, and fight effectively in environments where sophisticated technology was useless. What impressed the alien observers most was not the tactics themselves, but the attitude behind them. Humans approached warfare with a combination of careful planning and wild improvisation that no other species had ever mastered. They prepared for every contingency, while remaining ready to throw away the plan entirely if circumstances demanded it. By the end of the week, mixed human-alien units were performing boarding exercises with success rates that matched elite human marine units. The galaxy's most advanced species were learning to fight like humans, and discovering that sometimes primitive was exactly what they needed. The transformation was not limited to military tactics. Human engineers were working with alien technical teams to develop new approaches to ship design and weapons development. The results were revolutionary. Chief Engineer Sarah Park stood in the modified workshop aboard the captured Zarathi flagship, now renamed UNS Innovation. Around her, human and alien technicians worked together on projects that would have been impossible just months earlier. The problem with most galactic ship design, she explained to a fascinated Krillian engineer, is that everyone assumes technology will work perfectly. Ever heard it? 6 months after the Battle of Sector 847, the war had transformed into something no one in the galaxy had expected. What began as a defensive action against Zarathi expansion had become a coordinated counteroffensive led by the species that had once been dismissed as primitive. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, watching the largest combined fleet in galactic history form up around her flagship. Zephyrian crystal ships gleamed alongside Valdris Psi cruisers, while Centauran gravity manipulators moved in perfect formation with Earth's hybrid battleships. It was a sight that would have been impossible a year ago. "Admiral," reported Commander Torres, now serving as her tactical advisor, "all fleet elements report ready. We have confirmation that the Zarathi Defense Fleet has taken position around Vex 7, their primary shipyard facility." Chen nodded, studying the tactical display. Vex 7 was the heart of Zarathi military production, a massive installation that had been churning out warships for over 2 centuries. Intelligence indicated that destroying it would cripple their ability to replace losses. More importantly, it would prove to the galaxy that the Zarathi Empire could be beaten. "Signal all commanders," Chen ordered. "Execute Operation Sledgehammer." The plan that unfolded was unlike anything in galactic military history. Instead of the traditional long-range engagement that most species preferred, the combined fleet moved in 3 waves, each designed to exploit different weaknesses in Zarathi doctrine. The first wave consisted entirely of ships carrying human-designed weapons. These vessels opened fire at maximum range with kinetic projectiles enhanced by alien targeting systems. The Zarathi defenders responded predictably, raising energy shields and maneuvering into optimal defensive positions. What they didn't expect was that the kinetic bombardment was not meant to destroy them. It was meant to force them into specific formations. "Wave 2, execute," Chen commanded. The second wave was led by Valdris telepathic coordinators working with human tactical advisors. As the Zarathi fleet moved to counter the kinetic barrage, the mixed units appeared from unexpected angles, using human-developed stealth tactics combined with alien sensor technology. But the real breakthrough came when the fighting moved to close quarters. Sergeant Maria Santos led Bravo, company of the 15th Marines, aboard a Zarathi command ship, but she was not alone. Fighting beside her were Zephyrian warriors who had learned human assault tactics, Krillian soldiers using human-designed close combat weapons, and even Etherian scouts who had mastered the art of moving through enemy ships unseen. "This is what I call progress," Santos muttered, as her mixed-species squad advanced through the Zarathi corridors. The aliens had adapted human techniques to their own abilities, with results that exceeded even optimistic projections. The Zephyrian warrior Vel 3 used his energy-based weapons in short, controlled bursts rather than the continuous beams his species traditionally favored. It was a human technique that conserved power while providing superior tactical flexibility. The Krillian soldier KLX-9 had modified his natural mandibles with human-designed cutting attachments, turning himself into a close-quarters weapon that could slice through Zarathi armor with terrifying efficiency. Most impressive was the Etherian scout Whisper 7, who had learned to use her natural phasing abilities in combination with human stealth tactics. She could become partially solid to plant explosives, then phase back to avoid the blast effects. "Contact front," called out. Vel 3, as a group of Zarathi defenders, appeared around a corner. What followed was a perfect demonstration of how human tactical doctrine had spread throughout the galaxy. Instead of the formal, predictable engagement patterns that had characterized galactic warfare for centuries, the mixed squad used suppressing fire, flanking maneuvers, and coordinated assault techniques. The Zarathi, despite their superior individual capabilities, found themselves overwhelmed by an enemy that fought as a unit rather than as a collection of individuals. Within minutes, the corridor was clear. "Santos to command," Maria reported. "Bravo Company has secured the engineering section, beginning demolition preparations." Similar reports were flooding in from throughout the Zarathi facility. Human-trained mixed units were systematically capturing or destroying key installations with an efficiency that stunned military observers from both sides. On the bridge of the Zarathi command ship, Admiral Kex Prime watched his defenses crumble with something approaching disbelief. His forces still held numerical superiority. His ships were individually more powerful than anything the Alliance could field. His weapons technology remained superior to most galactic standards. Yet somehow, he was losing. Analysis, he demanded from his tactical computer. Enemy forces display adaptive tactical patterns beyond current prediction algorithms. Human combat doctrine appears to enhance performance of all allied species through cooperative engagement techniques. Explain. Humans do not fight as individuals or as automated units. They fight as coordinated groups that adapt to battlefield conditions in real time. When combined with the natural abilities of other species, this creates tactical advantages that exceed the sum of individual capabilities. Kex Prime stared at the tactical display as another of his ships fell to boarding parties. How do we counter such tactics? Insufficient data. Human military doctrine does not follow logical patterns. Recommend withdrawal and reassessment. For a Zarathi admiral to consider withdrawal from a fortified position was unprecedented. Yet the evidence was undeniable. His forces were being systematically outfought by an enemy that should have been vastly inferior. The moment that broke Zarathi resistance came when Sergeant Jake Torres led a mixed assault team into the facility's command center. The team included members from 6 different species, all trained in human boarding tactics. Torres himself had been enhanced with Zephyrian armor that powered his weapons while maintaining the flexibility needed for close combat. The Valdris telepath accompanying him provided perfect coordination with other assault teams. A Centauran engineer used gravity manipulation to breach barriers that would have stopped conventional forces. "This is Torres to all units," he announced as they secured the command center. "Vex 7 primary facility is under Alliance control. I repeat, we own this rock." The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Across the galaxy, Zarathi forces received word that their primary shipyard had fallen to the same alliance they had been easily defeating just months earlier. More importantly, they learned that humans had not just participated in the victory, they had led it. In the aftermath of the battle, Admiral Chen found herself in an ironic position. The same species that had mocked human military capabilities at the Galactic Defense Summit were now requesting detailed briefings on human tactical doctrine. "Admiral Chen," said Supreme Commander, "Thex 9 via quantum communication. The Zephyrian High Command formally requests expanded military cooperation with human forces. Our preliminary analysis indicates that human-trained units demonstrate combat effectiveness increases of 40 to 60%. Similar requests were flooding in from across the galaxy. The Valdris wanted human advisors to help coordinate their telepathic advantages with practical battlefield tactics. The Centaurans were requesting human engineers to help design ships that could maintain function under battle damage. Even the usually independent Etherians were asking for training in human-style unit cohesion. But perhaps the most significant development was the change in Zarathi behavior. Intelligence reports indicated that Zarathi forces were beginning to withdraw from contested systems without engaging alliance forces. Ships that had advanced confidently for centuries were now retreating at the first sign of human involvement. "They're learning to be afraid," observed Colonel Shaw during a strategy meeting aboard the Defiance. "For the first time in their history, the Zarathi are fighting an enemy they can't predict or counter." "It's more than that," added Dr. Elizabeth Park, Earth's chief xenopsychologist. "The Zarathi built their entire military doctrine around the assumption that warfare is a mathematical problem with optimal solutions. Humans have proven that assumption wrong." Chen studied the latest intelligence reports spread across the conference table. "What do you mean?" "The Zarathi fight like a computer program. Logical, efficient, predictable. Every other species they've conquered fought the same way, just with different variables. But humans," Dr. Park smiled, "humans fight like humans. We adapt, we improvise, we take risks that make no logical sense but somehow work. And now we're teaching that approach to every species in the galaxy," Shaw added. "The Zarathi suddenly find themselves facing an entire galaxy that fights like humans." The truth of that observation was becoming apparent in battle reports from across the front lines. Zephyrian units were using human-style infiltration tactics to capture Zarathi installations that had been considered impregnable. Valdris forces were combining their telepathic coordination with human battlefield adaptability to achieve tactical miracles. Even the peaceful Centaurans had developed hybrid weapons that merged their gravity technology with human kinetic principles. Most remarkably, Species that had never cooperated militarily were now fighting side by side with an effectiveness that surprised everyone involved. Human doctrine emphasized unit cohesion and mutual support, concepts that had become lost in the highly specialized warfare of Advance 1, year after the Galactic Defense Summit, where humanity had been dismissed as irrelevant. Admiral Sarah Chen found herself commanding the largest military fleet in recorded galactic history. The irony was not lost on her as she stood in the same crystal chamber where Earth's first ambassador had been mocked by alien delegates. This time, however, the roles were completely reversed. "Admiral Chen," said Supreme Commander Thex 9, his crystalline form actually bowing in respect, "the combined fleet awaits your orders for the final assault on the Zarathi homeworld." Around the chamber, military leaders from 47 species looked to the human admiral for guidance. The same beings who had once questioned whether humans could handle supply runs were now placing the fate of the galaxy in human hands. "Thank you, Supreme Commander," Chen replied formally. "Before we proceed, I want to address something that I think we've all learned over the past year." She activated the chamber's main display, showing the assembled fleet in orbit around them. Over 3,000 ships from dozens of species, all flying in formation patterns developed by human tactical doctrine. When Earth first requested to join this war, you saw us as primitive. You weren't wrong. Our technology was thousands of years behind yours. Our weapons were crude by galactic standards. Our ships were barely capable of interstellar flight. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. But Chen noticed something that hadn't been there a year ago: respect in the alien voices. "But what you didn't realize," she continued, "is that sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the best solution. Sometimes you need someone who doesn't know something is impossible." General Kavtor of the Valdris stepped forward, his telepathic organs pulsing with what Chen had learned was deep emotion. "Admiral, our species has spent centuries perfecting the mathematical precision of warfare. In 1 year, humans have reminded us that war is not mathematics, it is art. More than that," added Commander Zix of the Etherian Collective, "you have reminded us what we were fighting for. We had become so focused on optimal tactics and efficient strategies that we forgot we were fighting for survival, for the right to exist freely in this galaxy." Chen looked around the chamber at beings who had once ruled the galaxy through technological superiority alone. Now they understood something that humans had never forgotten, that the will to fight was more important than the weapons you carried. "The Zarathi made the same mistake we all made," she said. "They saw warfare as a problem to be solved through superior technology and mathematical precision. They never understood that the most dangerous enemy is not the one with the best weapons, but the one who refuses to accept defeat." Ambassador Veltone of the Centaurans activated a holographic display showing the latest intelligence from the Zarathi homeworld. "Our scouts report that the Zarathi have withdrawn all remaining forces to their home system. They have constructed orbital fortifications using technology we have never encountered before." "How many ships?" Chen asked. "Over 5,000 capital vessels plus automated defense platforms numbering in the tens of thousands. The firepower concentrated around their homeworld exceeds anything we have previously encountered." The chamber fell silent as the implication sank in. Even with their combined fleet, the Alliance would be outnumbered nearly 2-to-1 by an enemy fighting from prepared positions using their most advanced technology. Chen studied the tactical display, noting the perfect geometric formations of the Zarathi defense fleet. Even now facing potential extinction, they arranged their forces according to mathematical principles rather than adaptive strategy. "They're still thinking like computers," she observed. "Perfect formations, optimal positioning, logical defensive patterns." "Admiral," said Supreme Commander Thex 9, "with respect, their defensive positions are mathematically sound. A direct assault would result in casualties that would be unacceptable under traditional tactical doctrine," Chen finished. "But we're not fighting a traditional battle." She turned to face the assembled commanders. "For over a year, you've been learning human military doctrine. Today, we're going to use the most important lesson, that the enemy's strength can become their weakness if you're willing to fight differently than they expect." The battle plan that emerged from the next 6 hours of planning would have been considered insane by galactic standards just a year earlier. Instead of the long-range engagement that Zarathi defenses were designed to handle, The Alliance fleet would do something unprecedented in modern warfare. They would attack from inside the enemy formation. The Zerathi have arranged their defenses in perfect geometric patterns. Chen explained to her staff aboard the Defiance. Every ship in optimal position to support every other ship. Maximum firepower concentration with perfect coverage. Colonel Shaw, now serving as Chen's strategic advisor, smiled grimly. But geometric perfection assumes the enemy will attack from logical directions. Exactly. Commander Torres, what's the status on our special insertion teams? Torres consulted his tactical display. All boarding teams are equipped and ready. We have mixed species units trained in human infiltration tactics aboard 300 stealth ships. Each team knows their target. The plan was audacious beyond anything previously attempted in galactic warfare. While the main fleet engaged Zerathi forces in traditional combat, hundreds of small stealth vessels would penetrate the enemy, formation and deliver boarding parties directly to key ships and installations. It was a strategy that required perfect coordination between dozens of species, each contributing their unique abilities to a plan that no single civilization could have executed alone. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Kim, all fleet elements report ready. The Zerathi defense fleet has detected our approach and is moving to intercept. Chen took her position at the command console, surrounded by officers from 6 different species. Human tactical doctrine had proven that diverse perspectives produced better solutions than any single viewpoint. Signal the fleet, she ordered. Execute Operation Unity. What followed was the largest space battle in galactic history, but it was unlike any engagement that had come before. The Alliance fleet approached the Zerathi defenses in what appeared to be traditional formation, long lines of ships designed to maximize firepower at range. The Zerathi responded predictably, adjusting their positions to create optimal firing solutions while maintaining defensive integrity. But as the first shots were exchanged, 300 stealth ships emerged from hiding within the Alliance formation and accelerated directly toward the Zerathi home fleet. "This is Alpha Leader," came Sergeant Santos's voice over the comm. "Beginning infiltration run. All teams report ready." The stealth ships, designed using hybrid human-alien technology, were invisible to Zerathi sensors until they were too close to intercept. Each one carried a mixed-species assault team trained in human boarding tactics but enhanced with alien abilities. Santos led her team aboard a Zerathi command ship, but she was no longer just fighting alongside aliens. She was fighting as part of a truly integrated unit. The Zephyrian warrior Vel 3 used his energy weapons to cut through bulkheads while providing tactical coordination. The Krillian soldier KLX-9 used his enhanced mandibles to disable security systems with surgical precision. The Etherian scout Whisper 7 phased through solid barriers to attack from impossible angles. Most importantly, the Valdris telepath Seer 5 provided perfect coordination, not just with Santos's team, but with assault teams throughout the Zerathi fleet. "All teams, this is Seer 5. The telepath's thoughts reached every boarding party simultaneously. Enemy command structure is concentrated in the flagship's core section. Delta team has secured the primary power distribution center. Charlie team is moving on the communications array." The telepathic coordination allowed the boarding teams to function as a single organism spread across dozens of ships. When one team encountered heavy resistance, others could provide support or create diversions. When key targets were identified, teams could shift priorities instantly. On the Zerathi flagship, Fleet Commander Zar Prime watched his perfect defensive formation collapse into chaos as enemy forces attacked from within his own ships. "How is this possible?" he demanded from his tactical computer. "Analysis indicates that enemy forces have achieved simultaneous penetration of 73% of fleet units. Boarding actions are coordinated through means unknown to Zerathi technology. Deploy internal security forces to repel boarders." Negative. Internal security forces have been neutralized or overwhelmed on all affected vessels. Enemy forces display tactical coordination beyond mathematical modeling. For the first time in Zerathi military history, their perfect tactical calculations had become meaningless. The enemy was not fighting according to any logical pattern that their computers could predict or counter. Meanwhile, Santos and her team had fought their way to the ship's bridge. The final barrier fell to a combination of Zephyrian energy cutting and Krillian mechanical penetration, revealing the command center where Zar Prime stood surrounded by his staff. "Fleet Commander Zar Prime, Santos said, removing her helmet to reveal a scarred human face. Your ship is under Allied Civiu.